Are we live? Yes, I'm going to go with yes. So, perfect. Thank you. So hello and welcome everyone to our third and final Writers Q&A. I can't believe we're nearly at the end of the festival. It seems to have gone by so fast. Thank you so much to everyone so far who has tuned in, participated, taken part. All videos are still available over on our YouTube channel, so feel free to go over and have a look at those. They're staying up there indefinitely. You've got all the time to go and watch them. And of course, thank you to our brilliant writers. We've got all of today's writers from today's premieres here with us today. What fantastic load of films to end on. I've absolutely loved watching all of these films today. It's been so interesting for me personally to see how such a variety of outcomes, all from the same brief. That's what I've absolutely loved about it. I thought we'd start by introducing ourselves. So if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself, telling us the name of your play and about whereabouts in the world you are at the moment on this lovely bank holiday, or not if you're in Scotland. So I'll start. I'm Darcy. I'm not one of the writers. I'm one of the producers of ImagiNation. And I'm currently in Ealing in West London. Geraldine, do you want to go next?
Yeah, that's fine. I'm Geraldine, or Jerry, and I wrote Karaoke, and I'm currently in Glasgow for lockdown.
Nick, do you want to go next?
Hello, I'm Nick. I wrote a piece called The Apple Pickers, and I'm in a very overcast Hackney in East London.
Brilliant. Amy, do you want to go next?
Yes, hi. My name's Amy. I'm one of the writers. I'm in South London. I wrote Chinese Takeaway.
Fab. Zinni?
I'm Zinni. I wrote Silence, and I'm in Edinburgh, also in Scotland. I'm not on a bank holiday, I don't think.
Yeah.
Letty,
someone's just come to my door, so I'm just going to let them in. I'm sorry, this is the
Letty, do you want to go next?
Hello. Hi, I'm not in the middle of this long thing.
Oh, Letty, your audio is not working. Can't hear you.
Gosh.
There we go.
Hold on a second. It's not muted.
No, it's all good. I can hear you now. Sorry, I just couldn't hear you before.
So I'm Letty, and I wrote Human Again. I'm in Southeast London.
Brilliant. And Matilda?
Hi, I'm Matilda. I wrote The Pillar Whisperers, and I'm also in East London.
Amazing. So I just wanted to start this off with quite a general question, I suppose, and that's about ImagiNation. So what about this offer made you want to come on board with this project? Does anyone want to start off, or should I just go?
I'll start off.
Zinni? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and what I really liked about it is there's not many projects that have kind of democracy right at the centre of the kind of idea, really. I just loved the sort of notion that it wouldn't be put to very few hand-selected actors, but that it would just really be put out to everybody and anyone that wanted to sort of engage with the pieces. So I think that made it quite unusual, really. So yeah, that was mine.
I was really interested in the form of it, to be honest, because we got the original pitch offer through in not that far after lockdown started, I think, and so whatever we came up with would have to be in quite a specific form, just because of the nature of how it was going to be made. And I just thought that was a really fun challenge, really.
Absolutely, completely agree.
I mean, for me, because it was, very soon after lockdown had started, it was just really nice to be, to have a chance to write, to be creative, and to have an output, So because at the moment I feel writing for theatre, it feels very theoretical. Like I don't even know when live theatre is coming back. So this was just wonderful to do, in a very defined space and time. And yeah, I really like the element of surprise, just releasing it into the world and then just wondering what's going to come back.
Yeah, I felt the same. I agree with Nick in that it was really exciting for the challenge of wondering how I was going to write it and like what kind of form it would be the most interesting, I guess. But this is my first commission ever as like a baby playwright, so that's really cool. Yeah, so that was exciting.
Similar to Amy, I think the lockdown was just so surprising, and what was quite nice is the opportunity to write something that wasn't morbid or like really pessimistic about the future.
And I don't know about anybody else, just to chip in one more thing, but I found it quite difficult to write sort of a full, I haven't been very productive during lockdown at all. And so there was something about the fact that it was so short that you could kind of dip your toe in the water, and, you know, it wasn't accepting a commission, a big full length commission, has sort of felt dodgy in a way, because actually I don't know what other people's circumstances are, but I've had children that I've been homeschooling, and, you know, and a fair amount of kind of domestic chaos. So actually just writing something for 10 minutes really allowed you to sort of explore an idea without kind of saying that you would be able to find months and months of time, you know. So
yeah, as someone who is who's also first commission it was, and who is like a baby playwright too, I think it felt very manageable and achievable, as well as like fun to play with, and I think that combination was super useful as a young playwright.
Yeah. Betty, what did you find?
I mean, for me, the just the concept of you know, writing something and having that aren't necessarily in the arts, performing these plays was really exciting for me, because like lockdown kind of like is quite, you know, grim, and having that chance to share something with people was really enticing for me. And again, it's nice to have a commission, so there you go.
And it's kind of perfect there. Like all the different things you've said, is there's more of it. I've got more questions about those later, which hopefully we'll dig into and find a bit more out. Off what I said earlier about how different all of these stories have been, what inspired you to write your particular ImagiNation story? And yeah, let's start with that. Does anyone want to go first? I think someone. Nick, start.
Yeah, so I was inspired to write it by a couple of things, really. So one was a relationship to people who aren't from the UK. I worked in restaurants for nearly a decade, and that was largely with people who weren't from the UK, people from all over the world, really. And in the wake of Brexit, I think the way we look at people from abroad is very difficult. And I know people voted for Brexit for a number of reasons, but I think one of them was definitely immigration. And one of my best friends is Romanian as well. And I wanted to write about him and how much I loved him and how disappointed I was by the experience that he had being in the UK. And I thought there was also a certain frustrating irony about the fact that we now had to bring in an immigrant workforce to literally feed us while we were in lockdown. I also think that there are certain countries out there that we look down on a little bit, and I think Romania is one of those countries. But when you look at how they've dealt with the pandemic, for example, they've dealt with it in what appears to be a much more successful way than we have in the UK. And I wanted to look at that, but try and not be angry or finger pointing or judgmental, and try and be a little bit funny and warm about it. I also just thought it'd be fun during lockdown. I know that lots of like parents and children were locked in the same house, and I thought it'd be quite nice for just like a mother to say at the end of it that I love you and I'm proud of you. And I thought it'd be a nice thing to say during lockdown, which is probably quite a stressful time for a lot of people. So yeah, so that was a bit of a garble, but yeah, those are largely the reasons I wrote it. Yeah.
It's been so brilliant to see the relationships, because they're all real parent and child duos who have taken part in them, and talking about how it gave them a reason to get back in contact and something to do. So that was really lovely to see with that piece, actually. Who wants to go next?
I'll go next if you like. I mean, what inspired me to write Silence is that I sort of observed that there was something about the kind of rules changing in lockdown, and particularly so I'm writing about a woman who's kind of almost obsessed with her ex-partner's new partner. And I just kind of felt that in this time when rules change, and you're all in a kind of similar situation, although people are sort of surviving it very differently, you kind of have chinks in the armor, and that you might sort of reach across a divide, or a relationship that previously has felt fairly impossible could become kind of open again. That was sort of one reason. And the other is that I think that people in kind of domestic situations and relationships have been under a lot of strain, and there's nothing like knowing what an ex-partner would be like under strain, and knowing therefore what the new partner might be experiencing. And so I've sort of thought quite often about writing about different forms of female friendship, and particularly sort of relationships that aren't easy to form because of a man, but somehow actually you should be a sort of natural ally, really. So something about the kind of the rules changing, and that allowing different relationships.
And one thing that I thought was really interesting was how this monologue piece performed by so many women, showing this isn't just one person's story, this is several people's story, and it's all the same. So I found that really...
Well, I loved how it was done, because I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting that we'd just sort of hear, one woman's voice, but actually, you're right. It kind of allowed it to be. It felt like, oh, this is a story that's playing out right across the country all the time. So yeah, I thought they did a brilliant job. Yeah.
Let's go next.
I'll go if you want. I could only get through like the first kind of month of lockdown by singing. Genuinely, I had to put on like Graceland every day and listen to the whole album and just sing that to just kind of zone out. So I think I just kind of channeled that and wrote a song and wrote a play about karaoke, I think. Yeah, and had a bit of laugh. Yeah, and like watching a lot of rom-coms on Netflix as well.
I think a lot of us felt like that. There was definitely related to a lot of us, I think. Yeah.
It's cool though. Like I kind of forgot loads of the dialogue I wrote in it, and then watching it back, I was like, oh.
Letty, do you want to go next?
Yeah. So I was like, what inspired me is that like I just feel like for me lockdown was a time to reflect. I mean, I'm not sure, is lockdown finished or not? Well, it's really confusing. But that particular time, I just found myself reflecting a lot about just, life, and I felt like the world stopped for me to catch up. And it was just an interesting feeling for myself, like soul searching and whatnot. And then I just started to feel like I was going through a journey, a transition from being a dick to a nicer person. As sometimes we all are in London. So, and I was doing a lot of people watching, really. So I'd go to the park and I'd just see people engaging differently. And when this opportunity came along, I was like, oh, I want to write about that. If I'm feeling this way, I'm sure lots of people are feeling the same. In terms of like just going through that journey. And I chose to write about like what I miss being locked in the house. So I'm usually like a hermit. I stay at home all the time. I don't go out. And as soon as I said you're locked down, I was like, I want to go out. I want to go out drinking and just destroying my life. So yeah, and I just started to miss kind of like the toxicness of just being a human being, and I just kind of like was questioning my own morals when I was thinking about that. But anyway, yeah, so that's why I wrote what I wrote. Was that the question?
Yes, no, that's it. And it feels such an important thing to note, and to be like, actually, this is happening, and it's real for a lot of us as well. And we're not crazy for feeling like we're different now to how we were when we started. Matilda, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I was inspired by a news story of a well-known online retailer running out of microphones, and it made me think of some people, yes, would have been buying them for work and business and trying to set up a studio that works for them, working from home, and for conferences and such. But I thought of others who might take this opportunity to start their own kind of underground radio stations or podcasts that they'd been long putting off. And I guess I wanted to try and tell the beginnings of a story of characters finding their voice again in an unexpected way, in an unprecedented time.
It was, yeah. And I mean, this feels like the podcast, the epicenter of all the podcasts, and like the number of podcasts that are being released during lockdown was an insane amount. But
yes.
It was brilliant. So something worth celebrating. Amy, do you want to go next? Oh, Amy, you're in mute.
Sorry. For me, I guess it was a natural subject because I've been, if you remember in January, February, I mean, especially with Trump and everything, there was a lot about this was a Chinese virus and all that. And I just remember being quite relieved when the lockdown came because I was kind of worried about my kids in school. Like they were never bullied, but you know, you heard stories. So it was quite nice. Like I was like, okay, now they're safe at home. But then the geopolitical tension has just been ratcheting up. And I'm from Hong Kong originally. So I really have very ambivalent feelings about China and its response and everything, but it does have like repercussions in my life if because the anti-Chinese sentiment here has increased so much. So I think it was about that. It was also about like I've spent most of my time in lockdown watching virtual streamed theatre, so I just combined the two experiences.
I thought it was great. I thought it's such an important chance to highlight this again. Is this what is the real virus here? Because there's a lot of love to come out of lockdown, but there's also been some really nasty sides of it too. I thought that touched it brilliantly. And I wanted to circle back around to a point which Zinni made at the beginning, which was about the democratic nature of imagination. And I suppose we refer to imagination as this gift for the nation. How did you as writers find it writing a piece without knowing what the end product was going to look like or who was going to perform your piece? How did you find creating that openness of the plays to allow it to be performed by anyone?
I'll go first because I think I wasn't very sure if I should write like a Chinese specific story because I was like I really don't know who it's going out to. Am I excluding a lot of people from taking part in my story by making it quite specific to a group? And I also know, like having done community outreach to the Chinese community, that it's just really, really hard to engage them in theatre, and a lot of that is also language barrier, but it's also cultural. It's not a big thing, and so I did wonder like who was going to do it, and I was quite anxious about it, and I did have a couple of conversations about that. But then I thought if I made it very generic, it seemed like a missed opportunity as well. So I felt I was trying to, so I wrote in my introduction that, anybody who's felt like an outsider should be able to relate to this, knowing though that it was quite specific to a community, which is, under a lot of strain during the pandemic. So it was a difficult one.
Matilda?
When I'd first written it, I think I quite unconsciously written it for women, and Rob from Theatre Centre gave me a really good note about trying to make it a little bit more gender neutral, and actually, because we don't know who's going to pick it up, making the script feel like an invitation for anyone to pick up. And I thought that was like a really helpful reminder when telling this story that it could be performed by young people or older people or whoever feels like they too are on this path of discovering their voice, and that like a lot of the time I feel like we go through life just being seen but never heard, and radio kind of puts your voice kind of center stage.
Yeah, that's great. That's really interesting. Invitation. Yeah, definitely that nature feels very true to the project. Letty, do you want to go next?
So I was very excited at the prospect of having loads of people perform it. Actually, I said to Rob, can we have 100 people? Well, I just wanted to write something for queer people, and so and because Pride, was cancelled and stuff like that, and it's like usually the one thing I look forward to every year, and so I just wanted to kind of have that spirit of pride in the work, and the more people that got involved in it, I just felt like it would have that sense, and the people that performed it were so brilliant, and they just felt like people I would hang out with on a night out, and the way they were just interacting, and I felt like they got the beat so well. So for me, yeah, it was great, and I think they just did such a good job in presenting what I wanted to present. So yeah, I'm gonna mute now because I need to cough. Okay.
Geraldine, do you want to go in?
Yeah, I guess, do you know what? I didn't even really think about the audience. I was just like so nervous about writing it. But it's been so great to see the response to it and stuff. But yeah, I've never had any context for what like my audience is or like who would be participating in it. So I just knew I wanted it to be fun, and I hoped that people would be drawn to it for that. And it was just two friends, so I kind of hoped that like any gender could perform it. But yeah, I didn't think about it too much, but maybe I will next time.
I think it's great. I think it's really interesting to show actually how different all the pieces can be, even with quite a wide invitation to it. How people put their own interpretation onto it. Nick, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I think slightly similar to Amy, really, in that I thought it'd be interesting for us who might not be from a certain place to be able to become people from that place, and live in their shoes for a little bit, and see that, like, speak from their perspective, I think, for a while. But also at the same time, I probably didn't consider my audience quite enough either, really. In my head, I was literally just imagining a FaceTime call, and then I've only managed to see half of it because I have to jump on this before it ended, unfortunately. But people have been so creative. Like the first people are like walking through a forest and stuff like that, and it's this like cool, it's fantastic. And also they're Bulgarian, so I wrote it for the two people are Romanian, but in this one they're Bulgarian, and so they changed the little jokes about stereotypes and stuff like that to be like Bulgarian Romanian specific as opposed to Romanian British specific, which I thought was awesome, and is exactly one of the reasons why I wanted to write it in the first place. So yeah, like it worked out well, having probably not thought it through as well as I should have done.
Amazing. I want to go back and see the differences now. I haven't.
Yeah.
The little changes. Zinni, do you want to finish up? Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry. Just absolutely, it was one of the things that really drew me to this. But I think what's interesting about this and other commissions is, I mean, in some ways, you never quite know who's going to perform your piece when you're writing it anyway. But you do normally write for a space, or you write for a kind of environment. And I think the other element that this has got is, just as sort of Nick explained, is you really don't know how they're going to do it, and whether, I was, in a way, in my head as I was writing, it was kind of quite plain, and it was just a single woman's voice. And then when I saw mine, they were moving around, and there was images, and it was really fleshed out, and a lot of it was outdoors. And that's been so exciting, I think, that it's not only who's performing it, but how they're performing it and how they want to film it. And it's sort of really letting a lot of people into the kind of creativity of kind of getting behind it. So I really like that about it.
I'm aware of time, but I just wanted to ask, was there anything that surprised you about any of your films? We don't necessarily have to go around, but if anyone has any things that they're like, oh, I was really surprised when watching that was not how I imagined it at all. Does anyone have any things they found surprising?
Yeah,
well, sorry, go.
I just the way they put it together for me was really surprising, and they all seemed to gel so well, as if they were friends that were like, oh, I'm doing this show, do you want to be part of it? So that was a really nice surprise, really. So whoever you are, thank you. So yeah, that's it.
The same. So I was going to say is I wrote it for a single voice, and it was performed by maybe I don't know, I would have to count 9 or 10 people who kind of through the piece became one kind of viewpoint in a really amazing way. And I'd certainly, if you'd said that's how we're going to do it, I would have kind of gone, oh, I don't know if that's going to work. But it was so beautifully done. It was really brilliant. So that was my big surprise. I'm very sorry, but I'm going to have to go. I've got a whole load of hungry children that are just sort of about to burst through the door, so I've sort of kept them at bay. Is that right if I say goodbye now?
Thank you for joining us. It's been lovely hearing you.
Bye then. Bye.
Bye. Yeah, similar. The people that recorded my one, they'd made their own jingles, which I thought was just brilliant. Like they treated it like it was their real radio show, which I loved.
Amazing. So another question for everyone: how did you find being creative in lockdown? And if you can, what's a piece of advice you'd give to anyone who is struggling with that right now? I know a few of you said that this was an interesting thing that kind of got you past that, or you struggled with. But yeah, how did you find that experience? Anyone want to start?
I think at the start of lockdown, like there was a lot of pressure on artists to get things out. Like a lot of kind of commissions were like springing up. But I think what was most important in lockdown was just kind of having patience with yourself. Like it's a really stressful time, a pandemic. And but then also I think it's kind of weirdly given me confidence to write whatever I wanted. So before you're kind of maybe thinking, oh, I don't know if I could get on at this space, so I'll kind of write for something that's not really me, but I'll try and fit into that. But I think with this thing that's so out of your control, it kind of frees you up a little bit, or it doesn't, my experience. And it's kind of made me write. I'm writing a play right now that I've always wanted to write, but just would never think it would ever get on. But I've kind of just gone, well, if at the start of the year, like who would ever thought a pandemic would happen? So I think it's kind of now or never.
That really interesting thing of constraints giving you freedom, like actually.
Yeah, I think so.
Nick, do you want to go?
Yeah, like kind of similar really. I was really aware that there were lots of people being very creative, especially being in lockdown and setting up things and contributing new things. But I sort of felt the pandemic didn't really feel like free time to me, apart from free time to like panic wildly for like weeks and weeks and weeks on end. So writing has been like real fits and starts. I think I wrote this like very, very quickly in a very contained space of time. The other stuff I've written has also been like that in lockdown, which is not really how I normally work, in like drips and drabs. But I haven't found it particularly easy to write in lockdown. It's a bit like living with a roof just like half a foot above your head the whole time. You're always aware the roof is there, even when you're like just going about your business. So yeah, it's been a bit kind of like bits and bobs as opposed to a constant stream of managing to work.
Completely. Amy?
Well, for me, the lockdown, it was because I have young children, I had to homeschool them, so it basically meant the same amount of work in like half the amount of time that I used to have writing. So that was one element. I was suddenly very time poor, and then secondly, like I was saying, I felt really abstract. Like none of my commissions got cancelled, but it was really abstract writing for theatre, and I was wondering, do I reduce the cast size? Like, do I put in social distancing? And of course, everybody's like, no, you should write like normal. But I'm like, I don't know how long this is going to go on. And yeah, so there was that element. And I think for me, it was more things happening in Hong Kong and Black Lives Matter that really threw me. So it wasn't so much the pandemic. I think June, July were really difficult because I don't like writing. I mean, I write political plays. I don't like writing about trauma. So like, I feel like there's always has to be some sort of hope and defiance. And I felt there was none of that. Like in June, July, I just felt like the whole world was going, like it was going apocalyptic. And that really killed the creativity at that point. Yeah, rather than the pandemic. So I've sort of recovered a little bit, but I think it's just time. Yeah, it just took time to overcome that.
It's so important, I think, to guess to remember that, you know, yes, it's been lockdown, but there have been so many things that have happened throughout the course of lockdown. You know, it's easy to see it as one encompassing thing when actually there's lots of things that have happened within it. Letty, do you want to go next?
So I basically, I mean, I feel like I'm always working because my brain's just always like this the whole time. So I think for me, being creative is an outlet. So I feel like if I'm not being creative, then, you know, I don't function very well. So yeah, I've been lucky enough to be getting little commissions here and there. So I've been constantly working. And also just, I'm kind of like the opposite of Amy. Like I get more creative when I'm really stressed and depressed. So kind of like having like really difficult times, especially with the Black Lives Matter and stuff, it really affected me emotionally. And a lot of work was born from that. I know it sounds really bad, but it really has helped me be more creative. More so than when there was no lockdown. So yeah, it's been a good thing, I think. But I'm ready for it to end. Yeah.
Matilda?
Lockdown, pandemic has been hella stressful and triggering and traumatic, like, to say the least. And times where I didn't want to write, I was very fortunate, kind of like Letty, to get kind of small digital commissions here and there. And because I didn't feel particularly creative at all, I was just literally writing what I was going through, like just writing through the trauma, trying to process it as it was still kind of ongoing. And I think it's, for anyone kind of struggling, writing in this time, you've got to like remember we're still in a pandemic. It's not just it's not over. So we've got a nation traumatized, and I think if you're struggling to write, then just feed yourself creatively. So listen to things, watch things, read things, discover things. Like, you don't have to be producing. And the writing or the creativity or the creative output will always be there. It's not going anywhere. But like, I'd say, center yourself for this period. And the most important thing is just to survive, get through this, and then the work will come, it will pick up, and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
What a brilliant piece of advice. That's great, Matilda. Really, really inspiring, actually. I feel like hopefully it will give a lot of people comfort knowing that is the same situation. I'm aware of time. We've got 5 minutes left. I just wanted to end on, I suppose, a culmination of all of this, which is lockdown has been such a strange and complicated time for so many, but it's also, for some reason, some really interesting, some issues have come up and are being talked about more, and there's more of a spotlight on them. And coming out of lockdown, what are some things you hope will change, and some things will either hold on to, or some things you think will be different as a result, whether that's big or small, whether that's, yeah, what would be something for you want to take from this, or you hope changes from this?
I hope people stay nice, and I hope, because I'm from Sheffield, and Sheffield is a lot more calmer and people are nicer, and I hope like London stays kind of like what it is now, and that's a spirit of, because that spirit of like togetherness. Yeah, that's what I hope, and I hope like theatre goes back to what it was. And we all like go to the theatre and sit down and watch some great work. Yeah, and just be in creative spaces again, really.
Amazing. Amy?
I think, I just realized, like, during lockdown, like how much waste there is in theatre, like that there is so much pressure to produce. The productions come, like 4-week runs, 8-week runs, like all this effort and time and resources go into them, and then it's over in a flash. And there are some productions I look at their sets and I'm like, that must have cost a fortune. And if you had that could have commissioned like 5 playwrights, and I'm hoping that the economic necessity of having really simple sets and props and maybe smaller cast plays, but could trigger a rethink, back to basics, like what theatre really is. Is it like just somebody, like Peter Brooks was saying, just you spread out a carpet on a village green and then you perform, and that is theatre. And I'm hoping we get back to some of that spirit, the theatre of the poor, the essentials, because I just felt we were all on this treadmill, and things were happening so quickly and none of us had time to breathe and process, and it was so unsustainable, and like environmentally, but also in terms of just human cost, so I'm hoping that slowness and having to conserve resources, that becomes a creative constraint that would one of these creative limitations that spur creativity, so going forward.
Geraldine,
Yeah, I agree totally with Letty and Amy, and also that, like, when we hopefully get out of this lockdown, that people just take the arts more seriously, like with all the films we've been watching on Netflix and Amazon, and the music that's kind of kept us going. And like, I know, like, my little cousins who are very confused, like the only thing that's kind of helped them through is like they've got choir rehearsals, so they all get together with their friends every Wednesday night or something and do like a bit of singing. And I think it's just so, it just shines a light on how important all of that is, so helpful to get us through hard times. And I hope that hopefully the government can see that when we get out of this. Yeah.
Nick?
I hope that what's happened this year gives people, I hope people get more of an opportunity to lead their lives in a way that fits them more easily and fits them better. I think a lot of things are up for grabs now, and one of those things is how each of us leads our lives, because I think the dominant thing of like getting up, taking the kids to school, going to work, the kind of like routine that that so many of us have lived our lives by, and commuting into this massive city and stuff like that. I hope that it doesn't have to be like that for people for whom that doesn't suit, because we're all different and we all lead our lives in different ways. But I feel like sometimes we are forced into this way of working and living and being that doesn't necessarily suit us all. And I think this is a time where perhaps we could find more balance, like each of us, and try and stake that claim and fight for that space that gives us greater balance and maybe greater peace, and gives us perhaps more time with our children, or less time with your children, I don't know. Yeah, that's what I hope for the coming future. And that, yeah, that's what I hope for.
Brilliant. And Matilda, do you want
to? I have lots of hopes. I hope it doesn't take another pandemic for the world to realise how easy it is to be a little bit more accessible, that it is a choice to exclude, it is a choice to be inaccessible. And I'm frustrated that it took a pandemic for people to see that, but if that was the way, then that's how it had to be. And I just hope we do not go back to a more closed off society. Like, if anything, the pandemic has shown the importance of interdependence, that we are all reliant on another person, a group of people, a community, that no one is able to move through this world alone. It is impossible. And I just hope that all the kind of access things that have become more accessible become permanent fixtures, and that we don't just take them away when it's safe to be in the same room again.
Such a brilliant point. And the amazing thing about ImagiNation was seeing all of these people take part in this, that if we're in our venues in London wouldn't necessarily be able to take part. So that has been so amazing seeing all these people from over the country, over the nation taking part. So thank you so much, all of you, for your time, for your inspiring words. I, for one, feel inspired to go up and do something tomorrow. It's been absolutely great hearing from you. Thank you to everyone who's taken part as well, to any participants, to everyone who's given their time to this. Keep sending in, keep tweeting us, keep sharing your experiences with us. We've absolutely loved hearing from them. This may be the end of the festival, but this isn't the end of ImagiNation. It's going to carry on, keep sending in submissions. So thank you so much to everyone, and we hope to speak to you very soon.